the most important job that I have in my whole process is tenant selection. Okay? Once we get a good tenant in place, the property moves along well. Hopefully you get somebody who takes care of the property. Hopefully you get somebody invested in keeping the property, having good upkeep, keeping the curb appeal there. That keeps neighbors off your back. That keeps the city off of your back. All these good things happen with a good tenant, who gets put in place. When you get a bad tenant put in place, it becomes a struggle, and you're in that property on a consistent basis. It's very costly for the organization. We find damage. We find ridiculous things happening in the property that just take up our time, and we're here to guard on our owners' investments. So that is the start of our building block and the most important foundation for the relationship. So from our process, we have a 4-part process. We find it works very well. Last year I evicted 2 tenants. We'll call it 2019. I evicted 2 tenants. As 2020 we evicted nobody. But in 2019 we evicted 2 tenants. Both of those tenants were not tenants that we placed in properties. They were tenants that we had inherited on properties that we took over. So, we see 1 to 2% eviction rate on a yearly basis. And part of the reason is our process. So just to kind of high level take you through it, we have, like I said, a 4-part process. 2 of those parts are interviews. Okay. So before the tenant even walks into the property, we do a visit in questionnaire with them. What we're really looking for in that is to make sure that the tenant can even support that property. We get people all the time, odd rent, $3,500 rent, tenants making $1,500, a paycheck. So, it's like, you understand the math, right? The math doesn't work at all, and so, we want to really understand that tenant before they walk in the door, and don't waste time with them or us if the tenant can't support that property. And that's really important with our single family residences, because quite often, tenants get way beyond their capacity because they don't understand things like utilities, and, those have to be paid. So when the tenant doesn't pay them, everything comes back to the owners. So you got to be real careful with that. So we're starting to build a framework of the knowledge about this tenant, and it's going to work itself right through our process. So that's step 1 is the pre-visit
your interview or your questionnaire. Do you do it over the phone, or do you send them like a document?
Okay. No, over the phone, and we try to do it casual so that they don't feel like they're getting bombarded with questions. It's kind of like, oh, and this and that and this and my booker, she's a nice little old lady, and she makes it sound like they're being friends, and she's just coordinating this action, but really it's building our framework. We want to start a baseline of information that we can cross check as we move through the process. So